Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Content Marketing Lounge podcast. My name is Nathan Collier. I'm the host of the show. I am also the founder and admin of the Content Marketing Lounge community. If you are not yet a member of our community, we are primarily a Facebook group. So you can just open up Facebook, search Content Marketing Lounge, and you should be able to find us that way. It's free. Just make sure you answer the 3 questions so that I can let you in the group. We are 7,796 members as of this morning, so just shy of 7,800. So today I have a wonderful conversation with Nina Roper Yearwood, who is a member of our community, and Nina works in B2B with manufacturing companies. But before that, she's got a really fascinating story about helping her dad pivot his business, which is a restaurant business, from an in-person eatery to an order service, a delivery service. And a lot of this is driven by the pandemic. And so she learned a lot, and she sort of walks us all through that story, everything from Facebook ads to word of mouth marketing to how to keep existing customers engaged, all kinds of good stuff that I think will be helpful for you, whether you're working in a business or working with a business. So and then not just that, but like how those B2C lessons really are all applicable in B2B as well. So with that as our introduction, here is me and Nina Roper Yearwood in conversation talking about B2B marketing and B2C marketing and how those two things, how the lessons from one really can power success in the other. Hey, Nina, thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you, Nathan, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Introduce yourself so people know who you are and what you do.
Sure. So hi, everybody. My name is Nina Roper Yearwood. I am a digital marketing consultant for B2B SMEs in manufacturing. And I'm a mother of 2. and I love coffee.
So we're going to talk about sort of like lessons from food today.
Sure.
I'm sitting here with a coffee on my desk as well because it's early where I am. You're in where are you in the world?
I'm in Aachen, Germany.
Okay, cool. I am sitting here in Dayton, Ohio. I love the fact that I'm able to talk to people like you.
Yes, it's fantastic. it's really fantastic.
We still take this for granted, I think. All right, so take me back. So we're going to talk about sort of the core of this is you did a whole sort of like you ran an eatery and like tons of lessons there from the sort of world of B2C content. Mm-hmm. And then now you apply them to the manufacturing world, which is very B2B.
Yes.
I can't wait to talk to you about sort of how that worked and what lessons that you have taken from the B2C world into the B2B world. Because I think, we'll get into it, but there's just this like, people say, oh, it's B2C marketing. Oh, it's B2B marketing. And then some people are like, no, it's business to people marketing. And we need to talk about all that. So take me back. So how did you get into marketing in the first place?
Okay, so I started actually back in the Philippines for a startup online news site called Rappler. It's, back then I was a fresh graduate and I was doing SEO for this small online news site. Now they're so much bigger. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got into marketing. My major was also communication research. So it's kind of, in parallel to marketing in a way. And I always liked and enjoyed relating with people, just hearing people's stories. So I guess it was kind of a natural pull, to be honest. And then from there, I decided almost 2 years into the job that I wanted some international experience. So I went to Financial Times and this is an interesting part of my career, because although I was in the marketing department, I was doing web analysis. So it's a completely different world. It's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of number crunching.
Yeah.
But I also had fun in that. And I think all those things, you kind of take the discipline from the people around you, and you kind of see how the organizations work, and you it was a great opportunity as a young professional to really pick up on the good stuff, the best practices from these news organizations. And as you probably know, because I know that you're a journalist yourself,
yeah,
deadlines are deadly. I mean, you're always you have to be fast. And back then, everybody was trying really hard to break the news. Who breaks the news first? That was the thing back then. And so who gets to break the news first had a better chance of, their story being picked up a lot quicker and, having more reach. So that was the kind of environment that I was, that I went in. It was a bit high adrenaline, but from my side, because it's a lot of number crunching, it wasn't as stressful as on the journalist world or for the social media people. But it was kind of fun being in there. And then how did I fall into Eatery, right?
wait. Let's not get off the journalism thing for just a second, because deadlines are, I don't know what's the right way to say it. Journalism deadlines are non-negotiable.
Yes.
And I think that that's where I learned, how to do sort of just what I usually tell people is like, that's how I learned how to publish, meaning like I may or may not have been all the way happy with the piece, but it was time to publish. So it published.
Exactly.
And like that's a core skill set, I think. And I don't know if you felt that as well.
Yes, I felt that, because just to go back as well to the Eatery, because it was a family business. So it was my father's lifelong dream to have this Eatery. So
this is what you did after the Financial Times. You
Oh, okay. So now we're going to have to mix in some of my personal life and my professional life now, because so while at Financial Times, I went on business trips. I had the opportunity to meet people, and in one of those business trips, I met my future husband, who's based in Germany. And so we had to bridge that gap because I didn't want a long distance relationship. So we decided to get married. Around that time, when I moved to Germany around 2016, end of 2016. That's also when we had our Eatery. So my father's lifelong dream to have it. And it being a family business, initially it was a brick and mortar. It's a very down-to-earth Eatery. So my father would cook. He had some help with my brothers. It was a very, mom and pop kind of thing. And eventually COVID hit. So that was around 2019, late 2019.
Into early 2020.
Yeah. So that they were 2 years or 3 years into the operation, and suddenly, they were just getting familiar with the brick and mortar setup. Then suddenly, because of COVID, in the Philippines, they had really strict measures. I was already in Germany then. So now they need help to transition from the brick and mortar to delivery service. And that's where I came in, coming from Germany, helping my family manage an Eatery halfway around the world, 10,000 kilometers away in the Philippines. So that's the story of how I kind of virtually managed our Eatery, using all the digital tools that, my father could deal with.
Oh man. Okay. So let's get into it, because I'm fascinated by this story. So what were some of the things that let's go let's even go back to the beginning of that particular piece of it. So at some point there's an email, or there's a text message, or there's a phone call between, you and your dad about like, what are we going to do? Right.
Yes, definitely.
So what was that like? And then how did you make the decision to become kind of a delivery service?
So number one, we were located near a bus hub, so like a transportation hub. And right then and there, we saw that less and less foot traffic was coming in. Right. Because in the Philippines, they implemented this like city closures. So nobody goes out of the city, and nobody goes ever to these hubs. And my father isn't enjoying it because he can see the numbers that it's not looking well. And Of course, it's also quite dangerous for people to be out, and there was a lot of fear, especially in the initial stages of
Right.
Corona, because people didn't know how to handle it. The vaccines weren't there yet, so everybody was really scared. But my father was like, "Okay, we'll try to weather this storm. I only have a few years left. I want to go with a bang," because he's due to retire anyway. But he really wanted to have it as a beautiful last song, if I may say.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's how we decided to really to try to transition from brick and mortar to a 100% food delivery service, catering to families and businesses. So businesses then would be mostly government offices that stayed open, and also hospitals, because they need people, they need to eat.
That's so. What did you? So like that's a whole new thing. I mean, that's a whole new business.
Oh yes, it was a whole new business. And how did we get into it? So what we did first really was Facebook. That was the only digital presence of that eatery, and so we tried to harness that and just started announcing that we are taking in deliveries. I used my marketing background, tried to target really paid ads, target hospitals, and just did that from my side. And then from their side, they had their flyers and all. And that's really how it got started. Then we got the first call, which was so exciting, an order of a crispy fried chicken, good for, I think, 12. So a group of nurses, I still remember it to this day. And my brother had to quickly just defrost the chicken and get it ready.
Right, because you're putting all this in place and you have no idea if it's actually going to work, right?
Exactly. Oh, the process, the system that you need to put up, it's a lot different from having a brick and mortar eatery.
Mm-hmm. Was it? Were they running it out of their home?
No. We had our own eatery. It's our own. So
you're still running it. You're running it out of the building. It's just
exactly.
There's nobody coming to eat there anymore.
Nobody's coming to eat there anymore. Exactly. So we use the space to really advertise that we are a food delivery service now. Mm-hmm. So anybody passing could see that. And then, because at the back, there's a back house sort of where my father and my siblings could live. So it's like, I don't know if it's the same in the United States, but for example, in Italy, I think it's also common practice where you have your restaurant in front, and then at the back house or up top, there would be like the owner or the chef living up there. So there was that. So I think it's also quite fortunate that we had that space. So we kind of have a hub already. So all we really needed to do was to turn things around, essentially, to fit the new food delivery service world that we were trying to break into. Mm-hmm. And back then, we were also the first ones. So that was good for us, at least, because not a lot of people have been doing food delivery service before. They preferred the brick and mortar, because food delivery services is a whole different thing to crack. Like, the delivery times, the menu that you would prepare. And you have to think about, say, for example, for us, we had to try to really keep the menu tight. And my father liked to cook different things each day. So we had to factor that in and get like ingredients that could be, so essentially plan out the entire menu for the entire week so that it could fit the ingredients that we have. And so that these ingredients would last, essentially, and have a little bit of wiggle room for, say, for example, these eventualities, like you run out of this and this and this.
Right. I have a buddy in town, in the town where I live, who made a transition kind of like this. He was doing like catering, a lot of catering for events and things like that. And when COVID hit, he told me, he's like, I had to figure something out. And,
yeah, exactly.
He started offering basically like a menu that people could come and pick up out of the back of like where he did his cooking. It was like a co-working kind of like a shared kitchen a shared commercial kitchen. And so there's like 4 or 5 different food businesses that use that space. But he started like just offering basically like 1 meal per day, meaning like just come pick up your dinner and bring it home and you can cook it in your oven. And I started doing that, and like now he's like an integral part of our family. Because a couple nights a week, like we go pick up dinner from him. And that has become like the core part of his business. And it was similar in that like he had to find some way to get people to know. So that's what I want to ask you about, which is I've talked with him a bunch about this. Like how was he able to communicate to like the potential buyers that this was even a thing? So what were the tactics and sort of strategies that you used to get people to know that there was now a delivery service available to them?
So, well, I told you I did a lot of Facebook ads for that. So that's how we got the first ones. And then the next ones, how we got them was really through word of mouth. We really had a lot of help with the Facebook customer reviews. I think that has really also helped us, because if you get a glowing review from this one person and it gets shared on their timeline and their neighbors or anybody they're connected with can see that. And so you're kind of there. Did you
ask people to give you those, or did they just give them?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So actually this is a big one, because some people are like, I don't know if I should ask. When should I ask? How did you do that? Like, when did you ask? Okay.
So you have an opportunity to ask when it's a food delivery thing, because when the delivery when the delivery personnel arrives and they get the food, then you have essentially your sales associate on the other side who would check whether they have received. It began as a very personal transaction, because we were really trying to grow our base organically as well. So you kind of ask via this. Imagine that this is all happening via Facebook chat. So I was the initial customer service associate, and I would ask them whether they have received their order. And then I would ask them, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, you can leave a review here. So it's as simple as that. Up to them to leave a review.
Yeah.
And sometimes they would also give a review very willingly on the chat. So they would say, oh, I got this adobo. I don't know if you know the word adobo. Adobo. Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah. So they would say that, oh, I loved it. And my kids ate all of it. It was such a pleasure to eat. And I would say that, okay, can we take a screenshot of this so we could post this on our page as well? And yeah, they more often than not, they're happy to do that.
That's so good, because you're getting them to give you the sort of like excitement in the moment, but just to you. And then you're converting that into a public facing sort of review. Did you then ask them to put it out like on a review site on their own too?
No, I just created an album, customer reviews for Godot's Eatery. That was the eatery of my father. And we started sharing from there. And sometimes we have these really, I wouldn't say avid fans, but they're passionate about food. And then they would comment that, oh yeah, I had that the other day or some weeks back, and I thought it was really nice. In fact, we're planning to order again. And this creates a certain buzz.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was the first part. Definitely a lot of Facebook ads. Then since we have built up a menu already, and my father, along with my brothers, would literally take photos every single day of the food that they're cooking. And then, because the service for us, the peak was lunch. We did not offer dinner. So it was just lunch. So imagine that you only have, I don't know, maybe 5 hours, 4 hours to make your money for the day. And that's it. And for us as well, in the background, the way we generated buzz around the food, interest around the food, number one, of course, were the reviews in the beginning. And then we've built up a library of food pictures, real food pictures from the food that my father and my brothers would prepare. And we started sharing what's on the menu, some behind the scenes footages, like just my father cooking his signature sticky rice, some snippets, some videos of my brothers delivering in the beginning, and just, because it was the height of pandemic. So we thought that, maybe we could take along the people on Facebook along with us on your joyride. So he would literally just film the road and we just, put it up on Facebook. And
that is it's so smart, because people are, I mean, when you get into this kind of stuff, right? Like the food has to be really good, right? Meaning you have to be offering something that's great. But there's this other aspect to it, which is if you can put the faces to it, then it becomes not just a product, but it becomes a story, right? And people are like, they're taking part in that story, and the food's just part of it, right? Like there's this whole other sort of thing to it. And it's funny, we didn't sort of talk through this beforehand, but you're describing what I would like. That's exactly what I would do if I was running this type of business. I would be like, I need a star, right? I need a reality TV star, but it's the chef, or it's the server, it's the even like some of the support people who are doing the work, but like names and faces and putting that kind of stuff to people. Like, I mean,
yes, exactly.
How many TV shows are there out there about like restaurants? Like people love to know who's cooking the food in the back.
It's a complete experience. You have to take them through the entire journey. And then, of course, these are family recipes that my father really enjoys cooking. And so, of course, when we share photos on Facebook, then we could also tell a little background about why it's prepared a certain way, and things like that. And again, it's a very simple eatery, but there was that kind of I really enjoyed that phase as well, of just telling these stories about why we make these things the way we do.
Was there anything beyond Facebook that you started to do, or was it all just happening there on Facebook?
It was all just happening on. Okay,
That's
so and in the beginning, yes, it was really all Facebook. Then after that, we got a dedicated customer service associate, and so we kind of did some sort of nurturing in a way, as the B2B world would call it. So we have a list of numbers, and if they haven't ordered in a while, then we would start talking to them if they need some food. Usually these are businesses that she reaches out to. So that was the other part as well.
This is the old thing that like it's way easier to retain a customer than it is to find a new one. You're keeping the money flowing from your existing customers. I like it. Yes,
exactly. And also, again, Facebook was really pivotal because I kind of had the Facebook ad running on the background as well for the old old customers, and so it kind of did like a segregation. So you get into the old customer pile, and then there's a new customer pile. But yeah, so it's just churning in the background essentially.
Yeah.
So they don't forget. They kind of see always. You're always like at the back of their head. So they would see food pictures or some random videos of the delivery person on his bike.
So there's so many lessons here. Meaning like so So we have a lot of people who do like freelancing and consulting in here. So if you haven't done it yet, like if there was a client who sends you work every now and then, but they haven't sent you in a while, send them a note and see if because they may be like, actually, yeah, I was going to do this thing. And then the other one is what you're describing there, Nina, is brand awareness through ads. I think this is one that there's a friend of mine who's a demand gen manager demand gen director who sort of kind of opened my eyes to this, which is I'm not an ads person. I've never really done a ton with ads. I usually create the content off this, like that the ads link to. That's where I live. But she sort of showed me that like what happens is that people, when you run ads like that, some people click on the ads, and I never thought about it more than that. Meaning like, oh, you run an ad, people click on it, then they go to a page, and then they sign up or they buy or they whatever. But she taught me like, no, there's this whole other level, which is like when you run an ad on a place like Facebook or LinkedIn or something like that, what you're doing is you're just keeping that brand in front of them so that like the next time that some situation comes up, they'll in their head, they're like, oh yeah, like let's order from that eatery. Like I saw their ad the other day, and they're not going to click on that ad and come to your site. They're just going to Google you or like dig up your link from when they had it before. And so it's hard because you don't see it in the attribution numbers, but the brand, like the brand messaging play, it acts a bit like a digital billboard, meaning like it's like a billboard on the side of the road. It's very difficult to do attribution on, and it drives the sort of more analytical people crazy.
I can imagine.
But I can see it. I can see it in the numbers for like B2B lead gen, where we ask people like, how did you hear about us? And they'll say LinkedIn. But in my attribution software, it'll say Google. And so what happened is they saw an ad on LinkedIn, and then they just opened up Google and searched for the brand. Right. And there's so many times that's happened. It's really opened my eyes to the power of advertising, and even just like the stuff that we always sort of like look down on, right? Like, oh, banner ads, nobody clicks on ads, et cetera, et cetera. And I started to realize that like, oh, like just because they click on them doesn't mean it's not working. So,
exactly. And I think, sorry, Nathan, to cut you there.
It's okay.
What makes that interesting is that if you have a really good branding as well, it helps pop. It helps even if you just have, I don't know, your banner there, like let's eat, and you have your logo there, something like that, something so simple. And may I just add as well, what we also did, I actually invested in a bit of branding. So I got a guy who's really good at branding. And so he helped essentially create the whole visuals for my father's eatery. So it because I wanted to do it well. You know what I mean? If you were going to do it, might as well just, do it well.
Yeah, I think the very, very early stages of my personal business, way back when I was just starting freelance, I paid a friend of mine who was a graphic designer and a very good one. I think I paid him $800 at the time, which at the time was a way more than I should have been spending, or it felt like it. And like now I know that was a really good deal because he gave me a whole branding package, and I have used that. I have used those I've used those logos, and he gave me like the whole thing, like color schemes, hex codes, logos in all the different types, like sized all the different ways. That I've been using it for, I don't know, 23, so almost 9 years now.
That's amazing.
It's one of the more like, it's one of the investments that I made very early on that I'm very happy that I did. So I love that. Like I don't know if you're a good designer. I'm a terrible designer. So I
wouldn't claim
to do that.
Yes. It's a different world. It's a different training as well.
Very much so. Very cool. So I love this. This is there's so much here about like storytelling and branding and bringing people on this journey. And so you do all this for an eatery, and then and somehow you now are working for manufacturing companies. So how did that happen?
So how did that happen? Well, my father has retired, and my brothers did something else. My brother is now cooking professionally for a hospital. So nobody is there to take care of the business anymore. And I thought, okay, so it's time to open a new chapter again. And that's how I got into just doing digital marketing for B2B SMEs in manufacturing. You know what, Nathan? What I find interesting about guys in manufacturing. So because, these are people who are very passionate about their trucks that drill holes in mountains, things like that. And when you hear them talk about it, it's kind of like really hearing people talk about food when you come to think about it. Mm-hmm. But of course,
it's very true.
It's more technical, of course. Like but food can also be technical, if you want to be really sciencey about it. But yeah, so I think that's where I found the parallelism in there. And what I also enjoy about the manufacturing community, at least here in Europe, where I'm in, is that it's a very close-knit community. They're open and very straightforward. So I liked it.
How did you get your first client in this world?
I was just in Upwork. That's how I got my first client for B2B SMEs in manufacturing. Yeah, in Upwork.
Were you intentionally trying to find this type of business, or did it just sort of happen?
So I was looking for something where I could do a lot of LinkedIn ads or LinkedIn copywriting, things like that. So something where LinkedIn is related, because I've in my previous jobs I've also done some of the B2B things for LinkedIn.
Right.
And having that experience with Facebook page management for my own business, for our own family business. So I was quite confident that how different could it be? It's just people. It's still people. Yeah. So that's how it was. And also, sorry.
I was going to say, so there must have been a manufacturing company on there that had a need like that, and that's how you got in with the first one.
Yeah. So at first it was they needed some social media person, and so I did that. It's quite similar to Facebook page management for the Eatery, except that it's a lot less stressful because back then, oh yes, I can say that, because I mean, come on, you have an Eatery, you have 4 hours to make money. So you really have to do a lot of these posts every single day. How many posts did I have to create back then for my father? Oh, I would say 10 a day.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Are you using the same tactics when you work for a manufacturing company? Like, are you putting like faces to names and doing storytelling, that kind of stuff, or is it different?
So what I enjoy the most is doing event marketing for manufacturing companies, because that's where you really get faces out. Because I'm sorry, that was something that fell. So you could really. So with event marketing, of course, it's primarily people driven and of course topic driven as well. So that's how we get people out. And yes, people are very essential in a lot, at least for me, in many social media marketing campaigns. Because when you look at LinkedIn, it's usually ideas, it's pictures, and it's quite refreshing, right? To see people, sometimes moving images, and just some people talking. And I even tried to do like a slum book type of get to know this speaker for a manufacturing company, and that worked.
I think it's rare, isn't it? I mean, so years ago, I've now kind of like become somebody who pretty much only works with like technology companies. But before that, I did several client projects with manufacturing companies, and So one of them made custom taps, which is the thing that I didn't even know what that was. So a tap is a drill bit that leaves a thread on the inside of the hole. And it was like a family run business that was like 150 years old and like all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And they had such a fascinating like company story. Mm-hmm. And it was just, I remember feeling like I have so much raw material to work with here about this company that makes a really niche thing that that is used all over the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were selling taps into like SpaceX and Alcoa and GE and these massive manufacturing facilities. Yeah. But they were this small little family company. And I think what you said earlier when you talk to people like this, because I would talk to a lot of the engineers and we would create content based on kind of their expertise, because they were, as soon as you get them talking about anything that they have built, they just like, they light up.
Yes, exactly. That is
absolutely
the perfect
light
word.
Up. Yeah. Yes. And I think back then I was literally just writing, using air quotes. You can't see it, but I was just writing. And I think if I had that to do over again, I would definitely like lean into the video piece of it. And I don't mean like professional video. I mean like, like just like iPhone video, like, hey, here's how we do this. Here's John. Exactly. You know, he's been here for 47 years and he knows how to, you know what I mean? All this kind of stuff. And, because that stuff worked in visuals and texts. I think the video is just sort of like another level to it. And this has to be the kind of, I know it is, right? This is the kind of stuff that works for you as well, right?
Yes, definitely. And I think at least for me, how I think about marketing, even if it's, you know, even if you're dealing with very premium international companies, sure, you can have those very shiny videos, but at the same time, when you can also insert those, you know, more personal, or at least, you know, just, like you said, recorded from the phone type of videos. As long as you have like a polished story, I think it's good, because sometimes it's a bit too tiring to see just to see things looking too polished.
Man. So just on that point, like I've been doing quite a lot of video interviews and stuff in the last year, more than I've ever done before. And in this B2B space. And I'm telling you, the low quality ones, I say low quality again in air quotes, they're still high quality, but it's just me talking to a subject matter expert. It's nothing, it's not like edited. we put a little bumper on the front that like has the logo, and then it just dumps straight into me and the expert talking. And like I'll usually chat with somebody for an hour or so, and we'll record it. And then I'll cut that up, and there'll be like a 90-second clip of the subject matter expert just talking, taken from the gut. And we have seen like I get more engagement on those than I do on the professionally edited ones. I really do.
Yes, because people are interested in, you know, in real stories.
Yeah. Yep. People respond to people no matter whether it's B2B, B2C. There's always like,
that is true.
There's always a person behind the product, right? So I had an engineer tell me once, he said, it doesn't matter what product you like, go into any store and there's just thousands and thousands of products. And he said, those are really interesting to me. But what's more interesting to me is that there's always a machine somewhere in the world that made that, like, that is used to like somebody had to build the machine to make the floor mats that go in your car and the curtain rod that your curtain hangs on. And I love the machines that are behind all the things that are in the world. And I would take it one step further to say there's a person who designed the machine that created the floor mats. And that person's story is always fascinating if you can get to it. And I'm not sure that enough companies really realize that it doesn't matter if it's a restaurant or an industrial manufacturing facility. Like, the people that make the things, those are always interesting stories. Always.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. That's why I really enjoy sitting in on those webinars and round tables or in summits, even if just virtually, because that's when you really get to hear the story behind the gloss.
Yep.
And, sometimes a brand can be very intimidating. But once you see the people behind the brand, you see that, oh, okay, so he is quite funny. I mean, he seems very down to earth. He seems to care about, similar things. And of course, to be also completely honest, there is a learning curve with doing marketing for manufacturing compared to, say, for example, marketing for food, because it's a lot easier, of course, to talk about food that you have every single day. But it's probably a bit hard to talk about your shower head because you don't have a lot of feelings for your shower head.
Right. But somebody in this world does.
Yes.
And if you could talk to that person and channel their energy and their excitement, then now you have something. Now you have a piece of marketing. Now you have a story you can work with.
Yes, definitely.
Nina, I love all these lessons. I promised you that I would. I promised that I would carve out some time. Is there anything you want to ask me?
Oh, yes. I do actually have a question for you. I wanted to ask you because I'm a longtime member of your content marketing lounge on Facebook. And I was wondering whether you could see a difference between building a community today versus building that community from I don't know when you started it.
2015. So we're coming up. It was August. So almost 7 years now.
Wow. 7 years. So what's the difference?
It's funny. A lot has changed, meaning the Facebook has changed a lot in that time. But the community and the core principles that make the community valuable have not really changed. And so let me sort of let me give you a more detailed answer on that. Facebook itself, I would say maybe, I can't remember the date, 3-4 years ago, they had a couple of summits and announcements and things where they really sort of came out and said groups, Facebook groups are going to be a core part of what Facebook is from now on. I think Facebook groups was just something that Facebook had for a while. And then there was a day when they started to really focus on it. And ever since then, I've gotten, as a group admin, I get a lot more tools than I had in the past. I can see a lot more data about, I get a lot more reports about these are the posts that are the most engaged and these are the people that are the most active in the group. The analytics and the sort of the information I have access to from the group is a lot stronger than it was when I started it back in 2015. But that said, the actual art of creating a culture of a supportive, active, fun place to be, that has not changed at all. and I think that's true. I mean, it's true. It doesn't matter the platform, right? Slack communities, Reddit communities, Discord, any of these, it's all the same thing, which is if you as the leader of a community are actively finding ways to provide a valuable, fun experience for people, and by valuable, that means two things, meaning, right, value can come from feeling like you got information that you didn't have before, so educational content. But I think there's an underrated one, which is if it feels fun. If it's just fun to be in there, just chatting with people.
Yeah.
That is.
And let me add.
Yeah.
Can I also add, based on my experience with CML, a safe space to air out your agonies, your questions, and not feel like you're being judged for, asking the simplest, probably to you at least, silly marketing questions.
Right. And I think so. So if you're thinking about, so here's just a couple of things. If you're somebody listening to this, or if you're you, Nina, thinking about starting a community or growing a community or trying to create a great community, the simplest thing you can do that will like dramatically make your group or your community valued by the members is to protect the community. And by that, I mean, if you go into an unmoderated space, so Twitter is the perfect example of this. Twitter is an amazing tool for connection. It's an amazing tool for sharing your thoughts. And it is just ruined by trolls. It's just ruined by like the experience that, and in particular, women, minorities, people who don't look and sound like me. Like I can post on Twitter and I don't even have to think about like whether or not somebody's going to send me like sexually abusive messages in my DMs, you know?
Yeah.
And women on LinkedIn and Twitter have to think about that. And that breaks my heart. But that's a reality of the world we live in, is that there's a, I don't know what the percentage is. It's a small percentage of people, right? That are it's way less than 1%, but they just wreck it for so many people. Like how many people have you seen that are like, that's it, I'm out. Like, and in particular, in the tech space in particular, there's story after story. I see one, I don't know, every few months that seems to pop through where there'll be, you know, a female tech, you know, expert who had a presence on Twitter who just shut it down because she couldn't deal with it anymore. Yeah. And I hate that. And so in my community, like it's just a rule. It's just like nobody gets to behave like that in my community. I don't give warnings. I don't even call it out usually. I just delete that person and I delete their post and they're just gone. Like I just blocked them from the group, which means they can't even like find the group in search anymore. And so, if there's the only thing I've ever had to kick somebody out of my group on ever, is it's always, I mean, I hate to say this, but it's just the truth. In 7 years, it hasn't happened that often, but it's always been guys being pretty gross to women in the group every time. And it's not that there aren't, you know, females who aren't awful on the internet too, but just in my experience, in my group in particular, it's always been 100% of the time it's been men. And so, I think that just letting the group know that like that isn't, it's not allowed. It's not I just don't stand for it. And what I do in those situations is I'll delete the person, I'll block them, and then I'll reach out to whoever it was that was getting attacked by that person through DM. And I'll just say, just privately, I'll just say like, I'm really sorry that you had to deal with this in my group. I try really hard to make this a place where this doesn't happen. Yeah. But like, I want you to know I took that down and that person will no longer bother you in my group. And as disappointed as I am to have had that happen to somebody in the group, usually at least like, you can never take those things away. It's not like that thing doesn't happen because I reached out and apologized. But just creating a space where people who are new can feel comfortable about asking a question. And so if somebody asks a question that seems like a beginner question, and like in other groups, you might see people come in and be like, why don't you watch like a YouTube video or something before you ask a question? You know what I mean? You see that all the time. And I just think that that's a tactical mistake in terms of developing a cool community, in that like what you do if I criticize somebody for asking a question, then I'm just putting a chill on the rest of the group. I'm just telling everybody else in the group that this is not a safe place to ask questions. And so I try to do the opposite of that, which is... And
you know what I find interesting, talking about the group that you've built on Facebook, is that even with the simplest questions, because people have different experiences, and sometimes what you think is the answer is, something else entirely. And you're like, oh yeah, that's also a possibility. Maybe I should try that too.
Oh, it's so true. And I try to do that, right? I try and be like, this is my experience. This is what I've seen work. But also like, maybe other people have other experiences, and like, I hope they'll jump in and comment. And I've learned so much, Nina. I've learned so much from conversations like that and I think the other thing to say is like, there are questions that come up over and over and over. It's the same question asked every time, right? However, every time that question is asked, it's a little different, right? So
answers evolve.
Yeah. Well, the situation changes, like times change. And even like people say, how do I get better clients? That question comes up in various forms all the time in the group. And everyone's situation is a little bit different, and the nuances are what make it interesting. And I think that the conversations that happen on questions like that are valuable to the entire group. And that's why I want people to know that this is a place where they can ask questions and get help. So,
yeah, awesome.
That hasn't changed at all. And it never will. Anything else?
Yes. One last question, Nathan. So this one is, I'm curious because I mean, we're both in industries, verticals with some sort of a learning curve. Yeah. So with your experience, what can you tell our listeners? Like, where can they start? So in particular, if they want to produce thought, leadership pieces, where do they start? Any particular tips in shortening this particular learning curve?
Oh, yeah. I've got one big one, which is don't think like a thought leader at the start, think like a journalist. And so what I mean by that is, the easiest analogy is like sports. So take like Formula One racing or something, just like just any sport, or in English Premier League soccer, German Bundesliga. Since you're in Germany.
I love basketball, Nathan.
There you go. Basketball. Okay, we'll go with basketball. That's a good one because that's the only professional sporting event I ever covered was an NBA game. There's every time you watch a broadcast of a basketball game, there'll be the announcer, right? The person giving the play-by-play, and then there's the person who's sitting next to them giving the color commentary. And the announcer is a journalist. The color commentator is almost always a former player, like almost always, right? And so the two of them are just talking back and forth about what's happening, and the player's giving insights, but the broadcaster is just giving the information. And so the broadcaster's job is to organize the information in a way that the listener and the watcher of the broadcast can follow along. That's the skill of a journalist, is to take the information and the expertise from exterior sources, organize it in a way that can be consumed by the target audience. And that's your job when you enter a brand new market, is you got to find the subject matter experts, take their expertise, and then you are the channel through which their expertise flows. And so this is why I love doing interviews. And in particular, I love doing case study. I love doing feature stories on. Oh, yes. I love it. So the first thing I'll always ask, if I'm going into a new company, the first thing I'll ask the company to do is like, can you connect me with one of your customers? I'd like to write a profile story on them. And I don't mean a case study, like a traditional case study. I mean a profile story where I'm telling their story. Kind of like right now, Nina, we just told your story. Because by doing that, like, you're going to get a masterclass in that person's subject matter expertise. And if you do just 2 or 3 of those at the beginning of an engagement, you will be like far more knowledgeable than most people in that field. And all of a sudden you will become something of a thought leader, because if you listen to the journalists who have been covering a particular like beat for a long time, if you listen to the journalists who have been covering the NBA for a long time, they know everything about the NBA, even though they never played. And so they become a thought leader by just being in the conversations with people who are already thought leaders. That's my shortcut.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, because the more you listen, it starts with listening, right? The more you listen to these people, you kind of hear the nuances, the language that they speak, the meaning of the words that they speak, and you sort of absorb this and add this into your vocabulary. And soon enough, of course, it takes a while. It's not an overnight kind of thing. It takes a while, but soon enough, you kind of, talk in the way that these people talk.
Yep, that's exactly right, Nina.
Yeah.
Nina, we got to wrap it up.
Oh, yes.
So who is the perfect client for you? So if someone's listening to this and they're like, who's the perfect type of company that should reach out to you?
Okay, so if you're somebody who wants to get started on your LinkedIn lead generation, demand generation, brand awareness in manufacturing, let's have a talk. If you're a tech company as well who is selling your stuff to manufacturing companies, maybe you're in pricing, maybe you're in, I don't know, spare parts catalog, e-commerce type of thing, then yeah, that's my jam.
Cool. Where can people connect with you?
Okay, I'm on LinkedIn, Nina Roper Yearwood. Just look for that, and I'm there.
Very cool. We will put a link to your LinkedIn in the show notes if you see this on a podcast, or under the description if you're watching this or listening to this through the YouTube channel. Nina, what is your answer to the group screening question, which is, for fun, you could pick one: flight, teleportation, or the ability to stop and start time on command?
Teleportation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to be in Ohio right now and shake hands with you.
that'd be great. I was expecting you to say I'd love to be able to go back and forth from Germany to the Philippines, but I think that's great, because I think one day, I'm telling you, one day I'm going to have some way for people in the Content Marketing Lounge to get together in person. It's going to be great. So
yes, definitely. That's a good, yeah.
I hope we get to make that happen someday, Nina. So Nina, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you as well, Nathan. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Oh, so such a good story, Nina. Thank you so much, Nina, for coming on the show and sharing your story and some of your lessons. I think I've gotten in the habit lately of in this sort of outro section. I've been listening to the episodes and then trying to record this little piece of it right at the end after I've listened to the episode. And so I really think if I could pull out one thing from that whole conversation, I think that there was Nina, you only talked about it for like a minute or two in here, but how to keep existing customers engaged. And just, we spend all this time in marketing going after new people, right? And so ads and trying to get the top of the funnel, more people to come in at the top of the funnel. And I think the more I'm in this game, the more I realize that there's so much power and so much leverage to just keeping an eye on your people who have purchased from you before. And that's true in software. That's true in manufacturing. That's true in B2C markets. If you've got somebody who's bought a couple things from you in the past and they haven't in a while, there's so many things that you can do. It's a simple, sometimes it's just reaching out and saying, hey, we've got a deal. Hey, we've got a special. Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. And you don't even necessarily have to say that you haven't heard from them in a while. Just, if you can, if you have the power to do it, put those people in a little email list and send them out a special note just saying, hey, was thinking about you. Got a special deal for people who have bought from us before, and make it exclusive just to them, right? There's so many little things that you can do to tap that market, and those emails and those marketing messages have such a higher rate of success than anything you can do going into a market where you're going after new customers and new prospects. And so really just that one really stood out to me as I was taking notes here about what we were doing. So thanks again, Nina, for coming on the show. Okay, so I will end with a community update. This is something I'm going to start doing. We are at 7,796 members, and I'm so excited because there was a period of time sort of late last year where I was just so busy at the day job, and I wasn't able to really put a whole lot of time and energy into the community. And we were still growing, but we weren't growing that fast. And so we've added about 100 members over the last maybe month or so. And that's the pace that I'm used to. That's the pace that tells me that the group is active and engaged, and the Facebook algorithm sees it too. And so the more cool stuff that happens in the group, the better the results and the growth of the community. So really excited to see those kinds of numbers. I'm in the middle of doing the content ROI accelerator with my friends from Outranking. So a little bit busy doing those kinds of things for the next few weeks, but in the background, I have a few other things kind of coming, including the first ever content strategy course, which is something I've had on my board for a long time and I've kind of avoided doing it. But I think I get enough questions about content strategy that I think I want to show you some things that I've learned, especially in the last 18 months or so. And so there's spoiler alert, there's no one content strategy that works in every situation, right? So no matter what some people say, there's no one way that I can teach you to do content. It's a lot more like, to use a sports analogy, like you have to kind of know where you are on the course. So if I'm golfing, right, I'm going to pull, a driver when I'm on the tee of a par 5, right? But there are other times when I'm just around the green, right? And I've got, a little 20-yard chip to get it up on the green. And so I'm still playing golf in both of the situations, but the shot that I'm going to make and the strategy that I'm gonna pick is going to be very different depending on the situation. So there are times in content where you have to kind of do a long, slow build strategy because it's the only way to get up to the numbers that you need at the top of the funnel. There are other times where you're doing sales empowerment, right? And that's those are ABM strategies, and they look very different, right? Where you've got like a professional sales team, and your job is to create this sort of air cover plus like weapons that your sales team can go use to get those, your like, sometimes people call it like the Dream 100 or something. Those are very different content situations, and yet there are lessons within there that I can take you through both of those strategies. And so I'm going to teach you. Right now I have 4 on the board. Like there's 4 different sort of styles and like playbooks, you could call them, for strategy that I'm going to teach you in that course. That's going to be a very in-depth course, and so it's going to take me a while to build. But I'm excited to kind of finally get that going. And so the other thing is that will be just included as part of the premium membership. I'm just going to start calling that the Mastermind membership. So those of you who are in the main community, that would be the Content Marketing Lounge, the main group. If you are interested in joining the sort of inner circle group, we call that the Content Marketing Lounge Mastermind. I do office hours in there. I do have all of the courses I've ever created, all the resources that I've ever created. I'm going to be leaning into that. So if you're already a member of the Mastermind, you can expect to see a lot more cool stuff from me coming on that front here very soon. So I will leave it at that. I'll have another episode for you here in the next week or two. But until then, take care of yourself, be good to yourself. I will talk to you again very soon.